Hi, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed Miss Sherman reading chapter 7. She sure does enjoy reading to you guys. So I hope that you're liking watching and hearing another third grader reading. I'm going to start with chapter 8. It's called The Spelling Competition. It was the it was a feast of fires, so bonfires leaped high in all the corners of the main hall, and a great leaping circle of fire marked out the spelling ring. Right in the buzzing center of a rowdy banquet, the hall was jam-packed with wizards of all ages and sizes, happy, sleeping giants dancing or snoozing ponderously on the edges of the room, and howling wolves, and lumbering bears, and snowcats watching carefully in the shadows from the branches above, their tails swinging. Fiddles and horns danced through the air, playing themselves quite independently, with no visible musician in sight. In one corner of the room, Encanzo, the enchanter, was deep in a political conversation with the other adult wizards. Swivali, a wizard from a rival tribe, was arguing that wizards needed to fight back against the warriors, just as their ancestors had in the past. The time had come for battle, said Swivelli, and for a new leader, me, to be king rather than you, Encanzo. The young wizard's spelling competition was taking place in another corner, and Luter had been beating everybody until Czar swaggered in, followed by the bear and the wolves and the sprites zooming overhead, stealing hats and pinching noses and generally showing off. And within 2 seconds, Ariel had zoomed underneath all the banqueting tables, tying people's shoelaces together, so that when they stood up and tried to move away, they fell face first on the table, hopefully into something squishy and messy like stew. Time loss turned patches of the floor into ice, and all the other sprites were making nuisances of themselves in an equally naughty manner. What are you doing here, Czar? Sneered Luter. Your magic hasn't come in yet. I'm here to challenge you, said Czar grandly. With what? Grinned Luter. Don't tell me that you caught your witch, did you, baby brother? He said lightly, and he turned to his laughing friends and jerked a thumb at Czar. This loser thought he was going to catch himself a witch and steal some of its magic. Ha ha ha, laughed the young wizards. Czar shrugged carelessly. Maybe I did catch that witch, Luter. He said, why don't you try some of your spelling on me, and we'll see what happens. Or are you afraid? Watch out, Luter, warned Darkish. He did catch something, and I don't know what it is. Of course you didn't catch a witch, jeered Luter. And you can't do magic, little baby boy. I warned you. If you dared to enter this competition, I would annihilate you, and I will. Czar walked into the chalk circle as he stepped in. There was a short, sharp humming noise, and a force field of magic leaped over both himself and Luter in a thin, see-through dome hissing with power. Everyone was quiet, with that quiet where you know something is going to happen. Time Loss drew one of his wands, as did Bumbleboozle, as they couldn't help Czar now that he had stepped inside the circle. Czar was on his own. Czar held out his hands toward Luter. Oh, you're going to do magic without a staff, are you, Czar? Scoffed Luter, and his friends all laughed loudly at this. Magic without a staff was advanced wizard work, and only great enchanters like Czar's father could do that. Be afraid, Luter, be very afraid, warned Czar. For I have not only the magic of a witch, but my magic has a power to work on iron. Ha ha ha, jeered all the young wizards. Oh, really, smiled Luter. He was going to enjoy this so much. That's right, said Czar. I am the boy that destiny has chosen. Confidently, Czar held out his hand with the witch stain on it in front of him. Feel the power, thought Czar. Feel the power. Imagine in your head. Feel the power in your fingers. That was what the teachers always said. But Czar got redder and redder in the face and more angry. And it was just like every other time that he had tried to do magic and failed. Nothing happened. Luter had been creeping warily around the edge of the circle in case that lunatic brother of his really had caught himself an extinct life form. Impossible, though, that was. You never knew with Czar. He had a way of making impossible things happen. But now Luter's eyes lit up. Oh dear, groaned Luter, holding his staff lovingly in his hands. Oh dear, so boy of destiny, chosen one. Where is your scary witch magic now, then? The boy of destiny, laughed the young wizards outside the circle. I don't understand, said Czar, bewildered and furious. I am the boy of destiny. I can do it. I know I can do magic. Botheration, thought Czar. He had been so sure, what with the witch-killing motto on the sword and everything, that this must be a sign from fate. But maybe he had been doing it wrong. And if this wasn't witch blood, then what was it? Please, please let me turn into a werewolf in front of everybody, thought Czar. That would be... Oh, excuse me, please, please let me not turn into a werewolf in front of everybody, thought Czar. That would be so embarrassing. Not for the first time, Czar had wished that he had taken Caliburn's advice. He could feel his skin prickling all over as if hairs were about to sprout out at any moment. You can't do magic, said Luder, but I can. Let me show you. I do it. I wonder what shall do first. Maybe I'll do this. He pointed his staff at Czar. There was a flash of sheet lightning, and a white hot heat of magic light shot out of it, hitting Czar full on in the chest so hard that he was thrown up into the edge of the invisible circle of the magic force field. Oh, brother, thought Czar dully, picking himself up. This isn't going to plan. I'm going to turn you green, grinned Luder, shooting blasts of magic at Czar, who turned brilliantly green as he was shot to the other side of the ring, trying not to scream as the blasts hit him like punches in the stomach, and red and yellow and pink. And Czar was blasted across the spelling ring, turning violently different colors. He felt more and more nauseated, and he struggled not to be sick in front of everyone. Ha ha ha! Roared the cronies of Luder and the wizard children who Czar had played tricks on and bossed about in the past. You need to be taught a lesson, Luder smiled, and I'm going to teach you a lesson that you will never forget. He advanced closer to Czar, who was now doubling over in pain and groaning. You're small now, said Luder, but I shall make you smaller. He pointed his staff at Czar and muttered a spell under his breath. Shrink was the spell. Shrink. Oh dear, not a shrinking spell, thought Czar. That's really painful, and I'm already kind of on the small side. I'd better bring out the sword. But he didn't have time before the magic screamed out the end of Luder's staff and hit the doubled over Czar and lit him up at the edges as if he were a czar made out of stars. Czar stifled a howl of pain as those stars set in like a vice-like grip, and a pinch that began in his forehead spread across his entire body as the magic tightened and pinched and compressed and crushed him, as though he were wearing a suit of armor that was slowly squeezing shut like the closing of a fist. Say I've won, shouted Luder, backing off to give Czar a moment to give up the fight. Surrender! Czar's mouth was squashed out of shape by the shrinking process, but he managed to shout, No, I won't. It came out weirdly, squeakily, through the shrinking, squirming O of his lips. All right then, said Luder, you'll have to go smaller still. This time Czar let out a yell as his spell hit him in a trembling shriek of pinches and pressure, shrinking his bones down a size smaller than they were. Bother, this wasn't giving him time to draw that beastly sword. Do you give up, said Luder. Of course not, yelled Czar. Now, you have really annoyed me, Luder. Luckily, this made Luder stop doing magic for a second, because he was laughing so hard that he nearly dropped his staff. Oh, I've really enjoyed you, have I? I'm so scared. I'm so scared. So, while Luder was busy laughing, Czar was able to draw the sword in the nick of time. For if his hands had gone any smaller, he wouldn't have been able to hold it. But he could just about get his palm around the handle and get enough grip to pull it out of his belt. And it was a moment of triumph. Czar drew the enchanted sword with that satisfying swishing sound that swords make. As they heard it, the gaze of onlookers turned from scorn into surprise and horror as they realized that the sword was made of iron. Luder took a step backward. You can't bring an iron sword in here, spluttered Luder. Where did you get that from, you lunatic? I broke into Warrior Fort, lied Czar boastfully, and stole it from right under the warriors' snotty little noses, and I can bring it in because it's a magic witch's killing sword. And, as you will see, my which has come in, can control it and enchant it. Luder shot an anxious bolt of magic at the approaching Czar, and with one satisfying slice of the sword, Czar cut it in half before it reached him. Was that another shrinking spell, Luder? Jeered Czar. Better try another one, for I am coming closer. Then the fight began in earnest, with Luder shooting hot, quick magic bolts from his staff and Zar intercepting them and breaking them in half so that they fell uselessly to the ground as fast as Luder could direct them toward Zar. The sword felt as if it were coming alive, like a freshly caught salmon in Zar's hands, and it was anticipating Luder's next move before he even made it. Zar wasn't as light as Wish, so it wasn't quite as clear that it was the sword doing the fighting rather than Zar himself. He just looked like he had suddenly had miraculously turned into the best sword fighter in the world. The crowd was now pointing and admiring rather than mocking way as Zar in an admiring rather than mocking way as Zar ran around the spelling ring, carving up Luder's spell bolts and slicing his staff, shouting, "What have you to say about my magic now, Luder?" And generally showing off. "It's working," thought Zar joyfully, and it was every bit as exciting as he had dreamed it would be. He could hear Heliotrope saying to Leaf Song, "Wow, fighting with a sword is kind of cooler than a staff, isn't it?" Oh, I forgot to show you that. There's Zar with the sword. And Leaf Song replying, "Do you think Zar really is the boy of destiny?" "I am a star," thought Zar excitedly. "I knew I was a star all along, and now everybody else will know it too." Suddenly, and then everything went wrong. Suddenly, mysteriously, the enchanted sword began to drag Zar rather too violently to the left and then to the right. "What's going on?" thought Zar. One moment, it was as if the sword were one and the same, and in one moment, it was as if he and the sword were one and the same, and he was in a triumphant control of it. And then the next, it felt worryingly as if the sword were trying to escape from him. Zar was having to hang on to the sword with both hands, until with a great plunging leap that pulled him 3 feet into the air, the sword dragged itself out of his grasp and rocketed up through the domed circle of the magic surrounding them, which caused the entire circle to explode. Boom! The force of the explosion sent magic ricocheting around the main hall in huge, violent blasts, ripping holes in the ceiling, and fireballs the size of pumpkins flew across the room. The enchanted sword, after exploding out of the magic circle, sailed up into the rafters of the ceiling of the main hall and disappeared in the direction of Zar's room. When the smoke cleared, Zar and Luder had been thrown onto their backs and were lying on the floor, choking and coughing. A great crack had opened up beneath Zar's feet and had split right across the floor of the room. "What is going on here?" The king enchanter's voice was as cold as ice.